Well, thank you all very much for having me. First and foremost, I just want to recognize those folks that are in the current path of Hurricane Helene. I will tell you, as a certified floodplain manager, and I'm also a incident command instructor for FEMA in one of my roles, and I will tell you is that I had the pleasure and the unfortunate advantage and disadvantage of working on the hurricane micro recovery of the Panhandle, where I was there for about a month and a half, and it is devastating to see what families go through, and we're just so very lucky to have such good emergency managers throughout the state of Florida and leadership out of the governor's office, and our hopes and prayers are with them coming from Collier, and I certainly hope you'll keep them in your heart and in your mind. So they asked me to come and talk a little bit about the present and future of Collier County, and unfortunately when you're with the county, we spend more time looking through the rearview mirror than the windshield because it's all data that occurred. But as we start to look forward and start to see a little bit more, and that's me, hey, this is a little bit about us, community development divisions. After some reorganization, we're made up of just about 1,000 people my closest colleagues. We have the building review, operations, regulatory management, development review, all of your zoning entitlements, community planning and resiliency, so yes, economic development, housing policy, as well as all of the resiliency efforts to include the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers study that's currently ongoing on the Collier County coastline. Housing policy, as I said, domestic animal services, we're a real zoo. Code enforcement, and now Parks and Recreation. We truly have embodied more of a community development type of an organization and really trying to remove those interior or those internal barriers that exist between the departments so that we can better serve our community and give them a more stable and a more confident level of service within the county government. So we're so appreciative of the county leadership as well as the commissioners that we get to work with every day and the community we get to serve. So, a little bit about Collier County. We're made up of just a little over 2,300 miles, of which about 1,900 of those miles is considered a special flood hazard area. We are the only community that 97% of your entire county is a special flood hazard area. That's Collier County. So, of that, we have about 14% are entitled areas, which makes up about 213,000, almost 214,000 buildable lots are entitled, meaning zoned and can be developed or redeveloped. And we have just about 8% of our county left that's considered unentitled, but able to be developed. The rest, the other 2/3, is all preserves, parks, open space. And that's very important when you have 97% of your community set as a special flood hazard area. Our demographics in Collier County, we work with the census right out of our office. So based off of Lightcast and using the U.S. Census population, we're coming in right now at about 411,000 residents or people that live here better than 6 months in one day. We recognize that our regional employment is right around 188,000 jobs, and of which 40,000 people or more drive into Collier County every day to go to work. Average median income, as reported by HUD, is $104,300, and that's very important when we're classifying properties that are asking additional zoning for affordable housing, that they're willing to make that affordable housing commitment. Talks about our migration, where are these folks coming from? I know during the COVID years, I think I had presented to NABOR, and we actually saw a pattern for the first time where California showed up on the map and they were outpacing New York City. But we're back down to that typical pattern where we're starting to see the Northeast and the Midwest. They clearly have dominance over who's actually moving into Collier County or who's moving into the state of Florida. Where the red numbers are, that's actually a migration pattern out. Those are Florida residents that have relocated, sold their properties, and they've relocated to those other states. And you'll see Tennessee is the darker red. Tennessee, much like the state of Florida, no state income taxes, very similar. Sales tax is much higher, but again, still in the Southeast, quality of life is probably about the same. Our business characteristics. What this demonstrates is that we're made up of predominantly small employers, contractors, small boutique shops, law firms, as well as really in the financial market. The manufacturing sector does have some presence, but overall of all those jobs, it's really more so tourism and construction that seem to dominate our market. Largest industries, as you can imagine, no different than what we're sending permits on, is on memory care centers, ALFs, hospital expansions. Great deal. In the FEMA world, in these disasters, Collier County has probably one of the largest populations of what they would consider frail and elderly than anywhere else in the country. So that's why when they actually have to do a response to this area, it has to be much more measured and calculated. And we too, at the local level, we recognize that and try to mitigate those needs up front before a disaster actually occurs. So our population trends, what we've seen, what you'll see in the chart is this is what's come from the Bureau of Economic and Business reporting out of the University of Florida. And where the green numbers are is where we're actually thinking that number is going to land a more conservative approach. We use metro forecasting. I don't know if anyone's familiar with David Farmer and what we've done with the Collier County Interactive Growth Model, but this is a model that our Board of County Commissioners has adopted that we use, and we go back and we can actually true up what was speculated and what actually occurred. And so using that model and actually looking at the addresses, the address points that we generate, the permits, the activity that we're seeing in the field, and as I said, the occupancies that's occurring from businesses to homeowners, this is really more accurate of a forecast that we believe we're going to see in future growth going forward in the years. New construction permits. Now, without doubt, in these next few slides, I think it's already predetermined, but it just goes to show that we are predominantly a residential market. Businesses typically chase rooftops, and what we've seen over time is we continue to see, as those new residential communities come on, then we actually see more resistance where businesses are making other thoughts or perhaps even changing their minds because of the resistance they're seeing, the political landscape, or even more so the costs. So again, we saw a boom in the COVID years, and this is a direct correlation as we've seen it with the cost of money, cost of insurance, the availability of insurance. New construction, though, luckily, new construction has been tied back to your floodplain management ordinances that are set by the state of Florida, so flood insurance is optional for many of these new structures that are coming in. So growth in Collier County. So this is actual growth that occurred from 1990 to 2024. Every one of these homes received a CO, and this video loops, but it kind of shows the available lands where they've built and all of that area there that you would see in the bottom of the screen or to the right, which would represent the east. That's all your open space. That's all your protected lands. That's your Everglades National Park, your Big Cypress, as well as your state parks, and actually those farmlands. And every one of these properties, actually, we know it occurred, it got an address point, someone occupied it, it received a certificate of occupancy. And what I love so much about this is that you see around 2010, around 2010, Ave Maria shows up. And they're only half built out right now. To the far right, just below Immokalee. And then what this represents is really the differentiation between residential and commercial activity. And you'll see here's a commercial business, there's a residential. Almost like a heat map. This shows where your businesses are going. It does not demonstrate the timelines, but it shows you how much, based off of that last map, how much of these lands are occupied by single-family homes, multifamily homes, or businesses. So this is where we talk about why we've seen a little bit of dipping construction. We recognize that the cost of money has certainly expanded. When you're at a construction loan, you're better than at least 1 to 2 points higher with no guarantee that a client couldn't back out. We've seen sheets of, for example, plywood, OSB. OSB wholesaled for about $8 to $14, and every roof of every home has got OSB on it. And then we saw it during COVID jump up to about $68 a sheet, 8 by 12 sheet. We've seen gypsum board, 5/8 gypsum board, which is just drywall. We've seen it go from about $18 a sheet to better than $50 a sheet. And so we know that between your material and your labor, and on top of which, if you watch this storm, where is it headed to? It's headed to, just like Hurricane Michael, that's where most of our #1 grade pine is grown. So a leaning pine tree, about all they're good for is mulch. So once they get too wet, once they split, these are all lumber mills that require that, which directly affect our markets. Construction costs. So Florida Building Code and Florida statute requires that they provide us every contract or every permit, they provide us an opinion of probable cost, either by the contractor, architect, or engineer. And although they may water that number down and only provide their material costs, we've still seen a correlation between material costs in the market and what we've actually seen reported at the time for taxing purposes. So this is a chart we use predominantly for the complications of construction, what materials are needed, and how the Florida Building Code, as well as any local zoning, has changed towards the cost of construction and also affordable housing. Our floodplain program, and this is another one that goes into your economic development and your cost. So as I said, 97% of the county is within a special designated FEMA flood hazard area. Collier County has over 61,000 enforced flood insurance policies. In 2021, the federal government signed off on what they call Risk Rating 2.0. Every flood insurance policy up to the first $250,000 is backed by the federal government, by FEMA. And so as a result of that, in order to keep the federal government or the federal taxpayers from paying too much towards these flood-prone properties, what they did is Risk Rating 2.0 allows for that flood insurance policy to go up to 18% per year if you've got a historic policy, so there's no more forgivenesses. Your policy will go up 18% per year until it reaches full market assessment. So how does that affect affordable housing? How does that affect selling a home? How does that affect a buyer's decision? And in the event that you have a federally backed mortgage, you are required to have flood insurance. So with Collier County, we participate in a voluntary program. It's called the Community Rating System, and it's through the National Flood Insurance Program. And we have a class of 5. Now, we are the only class 5 community in the country that has 97% of your community in a special flood hazard area. We're the only ones. And in order to get to so for every number you drop, you start off at a 10, and imagine every number you drop, it's a 5% discount. And in order for us to get to a 4, you would have to have a stormwater protection plan that would end up in probably cost the taxpayers somewhere between $40 to $100 million of improvements. And so the savings right now is just at about $10 million aggregately. And so that cost is not reimbursable and it would have to go against the taxpayers. So we have the points, we just don't have the program in place. So it's one of the things that we're looking at as a county as we bring on new developments and all the changes that have occurred in the regulatory scope on how we actually do development and how we're going to store and move and treat water, because beyond it being a commodity, it certainly is a detriment to property owners and what we've seen in construction. Affordable housing. So with the affordable housing program that we are really subject to, it's based off your federal HUD policy. And so if you've got a $104,000 AMI, that means affordable housing means if I'm at a low income, I'm only 50 to 80% of that AMI. So I cannot, or my family cannot exceed more than $50,000 a year, and I cannot pay more than 30% towards my housing costs for my living costs for myself and my family. And it's all based on the number of household members, lawful members, but essentially it comes down to this. We recognize that the cost of construction currently, right now, even for Habitat for Humanity, they're probably hovering at about $220 to $250 a square foot, and those are wood structures. Prime market right now is right at $350 to $400, where inland, Aqualane Shores, Port Royal, 20 years ago used to be $400 to $500. Now the regular market they've closed that gap, and now we're even seeing those markets at better than $1,000 to $2,000 a square foot. But the bottom line is, how can I be able to recover my costs, know that I've got somewhere between a $1,300 to $1,800 reoccurring by door maintenance fee that I've got to put back into that unit, and still be able to make money so that I can make affordable housing. So when we see developers come forward, the Board of County Commissioners, they've been phenomenal. They've asked for the development that comes forward that wants to update their growth management plan or the zoning to put on additional units. They want to see a return to the community at about 30% of those additional units, or of the total number of units. They want to see 30% set aside for affordable housing. Now, affordable housing is defined as up to 120% of your AMI. So if you took 120% of $104,000, times that by 3, you're over $3,000 a month anyway. You're close to market. So rarely do we find that sweet spot of that entry-level employee who really needs that 50% to 60% available in the new market, other than, in fact, it could be Immokalee, it could be Lee County, it could be Bonita, it could be an older structure, maybe in Golden Gate City or East Naples. But the bottom line is that we're not finding that in Collier. And so what we're seeing is more congestions on the roads. And as I said, somewhere between 40 and 50,000 employees drive into Collier County every day. Live Local Act. So with the Live Local Act, this was based off of Senate Bill 102, now Florida Statute 125, and essentially it does this. It allows for a property owner to look at alternatives so long as they're willing to dedicate a certain percentage of those units for 30 years towards affordable housing, not to exceed 120% of your AMI, your local AMI. I don't know that Live Local was ever intended for Collier, being that Collier now has one of the largest AMIs, not just in the state, but clearly in the country. So with that, it does not apply to PUDs. So if you've got a zone PUD, we're talking about straight zoning, it does not apply to industrial, and it limits that property owner to no more than 25 units per acre. That's the highest density that's allowed outside of a PUD in Collier County. So how many properties are available? Well, we've worked with a number of different developers. The Board of County Commissioners and the taxpayers of Collier County put together the surtax that set aside $20 million, and we found one. The McDowell project, which is currently ongoing down off of just south of East 41, East Trail, along 951. But again, the community response has not been positive. We recognize that we certainly absolutely need it, but as these communities have become established, it's not anymore NIMBY, it's more nope, not on planet Earth. So we have found that. Some of the housing developments that we've been involved with, we spoke today, Pulte Group, the Pulte Foundation in Immokalee, the Immokalee Fair Housing. This is Ecos on Santa Barbara. I don't know if you've seen that one. That's actually been a great project. That was county-owned land where McDowell Partners came in. There was some tax credits as well as some impact fee credits that they were able to meet. They've dedicated that property for 30 years as affordable housing. And I will tell you is that if I know the commissioners had walked through there, fit and finish, high-end finishes, and they've kept this community great. So if you ever get the opportunity, I believe it's right by the fire station across from Countryside. I've been there. It is a really well thought out project where we took a small piece of property that was once going to be used for a small emergency operations center, and we turned it into community housing. Great location. Also, we've got, this is the Ecos on Collier Boulevard. This is the one I was speaking of. This is down just south of US 41 along Collier Boulevard. And you can see off to the left, it's a unique parcel that was already zoned for commercial. So there was, this one fit live local. It's large enough, they can make it work. Believe it or not, the property that sits behind them is owned by the Department of Transportation. So they're using that for water management. They're using that, they've teamed up with them. And it's in a location that will benefit both that eastern Collier area and Marco Island, and who also desperately needs affordable housing for their workforce. Housing developments, Cadenza at Hacienda Lakes. This is another really good program. It didn't come without feedback from the community, clearly. But what we're finding is that there's unique opportunities and still unique buys out there for these properties where you can take advantage of housing credits and really just making the numbers work. Recognize that some of their financing may not be conventional, some of them may be private investors, or they could have qualified for federal dollars that allowed for them to offer these products. Immokalee Fair Housing Alliance, this was what I spoke about earlier with regards to some of the offerings that we're looking at in Immokalee, as well as the Teal on, in Golden Gate. The Teal is the old Golden Gate Golf Course Hotel. A company called Styx came in, and it was the first time ever where we had taken a 50-plus-year-old hotel. We rewrote the code to accommodate them and presented it to the commissioners. It was sorely overdue and so well supported by our Board of County Commissioners and our Planning Commission, where we took an old hotel, turned it into efficiencies, and by its own design and square feet, it'll be affordable. And oh yeah, by the way, they didn't seek any tax credits or any dollars at all from the local community. They've done this design all the way from South Carolina down the coastline. They're one of the largest employer housing providers for Universal Studios and Disney, and they just go around and buy old hotels and convert them. We're so excited to have them, and we're so hopeful that this market will accommodate their needs, and we'll see more of this. Some of our recreational projects, because these are very big for the community, Great Wolf Lodge. Anybody here at Great Wolf Lodge? Okay. Great Wolf Lodge was a very complicated project. 600,000+ square feet with a water park, each one of those pools independently operated, and you're putting a hotel, you're putting gas lines, a lot of electric, a lot of kids, a lot of employees, and a lot of people all in one location. It's the only one that was ever built, first one that's been built in the state of Florida. it is a very, very complicated project. And so we take our approach just a little different, meaning that we want you to come in. No matter the complications, could be a fence, could be a shed, could be a Great Wolf Lodge, could be a Ritz-Carlton. We're better off having that cursory review. We're better off sitting down with you or your client to understand what are they trying to do, what do they hope for? And then let us help you, because we're free, we're already paid, in order to be able to navigate you through that process. I will tell you that Great Wolf Lodge went through 3 submittals. Now that's not too bad. The golf course that we're working on currently, that's county-owned land, it went through 6 submittals before it was approved, predominantly because they kept changing the plans and they couldn't get their state or federal permitting taken care of. But with Great Wolf Lodge, not only did we get them open, but we got them approved even before they technically submitted. So we'd already seen their plans. We'd already sat down with them because we recognize for every day that goes by, that's a day that a kid doesn't have a memory, a child, a family. But better yet, that's a day an employee doesn't go to work. And the Board of County Commissioners was so committed, they used taxpayer dollars, TDC dollars, taxpayer dollars to put into that because they recognized, and boy, has it taken off. We've gotten such great reports on how it's looked at as an amenity to our sports complex, as well as to the community, and they're already booked. So if you get a chance, swing by. I know one of our commissioners was there yesterday, and it was really, as he reported, it was amazing. So we're very happy to have them as a partner, as well as anyone else who comes forward. Our Paradise Sports Complex, as I've indicated, they're right next door. We've still got phase 3 to go on that. And we're cleaning, and we brought on our own professional soccer team, the Board of County Commissioners did. So Collier's made the map. We're never going to have a Zamboni, but perhaps we'll have the big kazoos or whatever I'm not a soccer person, I'm sorry. Big Corkscrew Island Regional Park, as we look to those eastern lands. Also, the Naples Zoo, Caribbean Gardens, everyone thinks that's in the city of Naples. It's Carter County. And if you know Jack, their executive director, Jack has been a critic as well as a big supporter of mine, but always there to be able to look at this as an opportunity, and the same thing. So what I would tell you at the end of the day, some of our commercial projects, and they're giving me the cue, our Board of County Commissioners has held us accountable to providing the best service. Our state legislation has done the same. People have property rights and have the right to ask, due process. Our job is not to promote activism or to look at the world through utopian glasses. But if you've got an idea, if you've got a problem, if you've got an opportunity, we encourage you to get us involved earlier, because we've got inspectors out in those fields all the time. 22,000 building inspections per month, divided amongst 55 inspectors, driving better than 100 miles a day. Average inspection time is usually about 2 to 3 days wait. Average permit time is still roughly somewhere between 12 and 17 days. As I spoke with Tim earlier, we don't compare ourselves to anything other than what our client expectations are. You're our client as much as we're here to help you. And so at the end of the day, all of this data is available. We track everything. If you've used our CityView data, we encourage you to do so. It's free. It's very front-facing. It's very transactional. All of our GIS data, addressing data, portal data, and we're in the city of Naples, right there off Horseshoe Drive, so we're always willing to help you. And I think, road projects. So roads, roughly we've got the Vanderbilt Beach extension. We've of course, Veterans Memorial, the extension from Livingston on to Old 41, and then the Golden Gate Boulevard Wilson widening. We recognize that the traffic patterns, I know I live in that area in the Golden Gate Estates, about 14 miles from the office where I work, and my commute time has gone from 20 minutes to about 50 minutes in season, especially when schools are in. So we recognize that we've seen an increase in those seasons. But even on our road projects, we've seen, in my career early, about 21 years ago, we were about $1 million a lane mile, and that's acquisition, permitting, and construction. And right now, we're probably teetering right at or above $5 million a lane mile. So it's very hard to acquire property, as you can imagine. You may have represented folks that actually didn't want to sell their property for a road for easement or lane widening. But at the end of the day, it is very tedious, takes a lot of time. The permitting, believe it or not, through the federal and the state is not nearly as fast as us, but we recognize the need. And so through our 2025, I think what you'll see is great traffic or great opportunities for transportation. And it's all focused predominantly on those eastern lands. So many projects. I think that's it.